Okay, here we are, and today we're going to be talking about sexuality and religion. Um, I'm going to be focusing on Christian faith and Christian religion today. I'm going to be talking about Muslims, Buddhists, and pagans or earth religions. But my primary focus is going to be on a verse from the Bible. I'm going to be talking about sexuality, and I'm going to be talking about the beast. Um, Here's the verse from the Bible that I'm going to be focusing on. It's Revelations chapter 13, verse 18. Wisdom is needed here. Let one with understanding solve the meaning of the number of the beast, for it is a human number. This number is 666. Now, I'm using the hexagram to express the human being, what the human being is macroscopically or observably, before we knew anything about microscopic world or the microscopic reproductive activity of the human being. So I'm just looking at what's observable by the naked eye. So what we have is we have a penis and we have a vagina, or ovaries and a vagina. And what we have is we have one, two, three. A penis head, a testicle, one ovary, two ovaries, a vagina. They come together, it equals the seventh point. So in sexuality there's 6 points, but in the merging or the marriage between a man and a woman, or becoming one flesh or braiding together to create a being, it creates the seventh point of creation. So when the male penis and the male vagina comes together in their reproductive organs, there is the chance of impregnation, and in this impregnation, a child is born, a male or female. So what happens if you have unprotected sex? Like sex is, like impregnation is a threat. You have condoms and birth control. So with condoms and birth control, you have basically an enjoyment of sexuality or human sexuality without the risk, just saying that, the risk of getting pregnant, or a woman getting pregnant from insemination or fertilization, or impregnation. So what you have is you have a human being that's enjoying sex more than the protocol ceremonies that surround around giving birth to a child, or marriage, or monogamy, or polygamy, and having multiple wives or multiple husbands or whatever. So what you have is you have basically a human being that's behaving with sexuality. Now, another thing to consider is that one of the things that contributes to sexuality or the enjoyment of sexuality is light, electric light, where it's more about sex than it is about making love and having children and raising a family and stuff like that. So all you got to do is take a look at the porn industry on the internet or in DVDs. People are enjoying the sexuality of the pornography. Light and sexual birth control have made it so that the human being can basically enjoy sexuality without the risk or the threat of getting pregnant. And having that mindset, what's ending up happening is you're having a lot of people that are alienated by sexuality. Like, they still want to have sex, but Muslims, Buddhists, and Christians, the primary economic consumers of the earth, makes up over 50% of the population of the earth. The moral and marriage protocol that's associated to these religions is challenged. It's challenged by the technological advancement in society, like light and stuff like that, birth control, and the ceremony of how a Buddhist man and a woman get together is being challenged by hypersexuality in our society. Now, I'm not saying that it's wrong for us to be experimenting with sexuality and participating in sexuality and stuff like that. What I'm saying is these conservatisms or these traditions that are associated to these three primary religions, their emotions are getting screwed up. Their spirit is getting screwed up. They feel threatened by technology. They feel threatened by science. They feel threatened by, now I'm not saying all people, but the traditional people are being threatened by it. So I'm going to give you an example here. In this example, I'm trying to illustrate or bring to notice that these are the primary influences in the daily life of the earth. Christian, Muslim, and Buddhist. So their traditional ways of getting married, their traditional ways of having sex is different than Western civilization or the developed world or developed civilizations. So I'm sure with Muslims they marry 4 wives or something like that, but generally it's monogamy, the relationship between a man and a woman. They become one flesh and they give birth to children and stuff like that. So what's happening is Christians, Muslims, and Buddhists, all three of these religions have a sexless beginning, or with Adam and Eve there was no sexuality. This is believed by Christians and Muslims. With Jesus there was no sexuality, human sexuality, for his birth, and this is believed by Christians and Muslims. With Buddhism, Siddhartha Gautama, or Buddha, his mother was impregnated by a white elephant, or the Lord Ganesh. All three of these religions try to control human sexuality, or try to control the human animal, or try to restrain it through religion. Now I'm not saying that they're the beast, I'm not saying they're evil and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is that when a Muslim man is coming home from work, or a Christian man is coming home from work, and they're dealing with their daughter that wants to dress scantily, or they're dealing with their son that wants to be a porno star, or has developed a porn addiction as a result of entering puberty. What we're dealing is we're dealing with the human beings that no longer want to be ashamed of human sexuality. And in not being ashamed of human sexuality, what you have is you have people behaving more primally or primitively. All you got to do is take a look at the tribal art tattoos and the piercings all over the face, and just being obsessed with sexuality like an animal rather than a civilized, instinctually disciplined person. So the protocol of how Muslim, Buddhist, or Christian get married is being challenged, and it's being challenged because the human being now wants to deal with the issue of sex instead of restraining it or trying to control it. Now, there probably would have been chaos if we didn't have these religions, but these are the primary moral influences, and what's happening is their traditions and their protocols are being threatened by sexual freedom. There's politics, there's xenophobia, there's racism, there's all that stuff, but I'm talking about sex right now. So the emotional security of Muslims, Buddhists, and Christians are being challenged. And we need to preserve these religions. We need to conserve these religions. We need to help them maintain their religion and their belief, but at the same time we need to deal with the issue of sexuality. Now I'm going to go on to a new diagram. Okay, now in this diagram, what we're dealing with is emotions. We're dealing with shutting down of emotions and the feeling of safety with expressing emotions. During the day, mind, body, spirit. So what we have is basically people building civilization, and they don't, when it comes to carrying a concrete form, or when it comes to dealing with your emotions with child rearing and stuff like that, the emotions are associated to generally family or nighttime or religious holidays, or going to church or a mosque on Sunday, or a Buddhist temple. So during the day, people go to work, and it's just mind, body, and spirit. So they may be happy, but what's happening is we have people going to work that have a history of being associated to earth religions, or other religions other than Muslim, Buddhist, and Christian. So during the day, we have pagans or non religious people or spiritual people that are associated to Muslim, Buddhist, and Christian. And this could be associated to First Nation people. What I'm trying to say is First Nation people, or even African people that have had their development arrested, or the progress of their hoop or medicine wheel it has stopped. So the Muslim, Buddhists, and Christians, they're building the kingdom, they're building the empire, they're building the society, they're building the civilization. And part of that progress has crushed pagans or earth people, like the Roman Catholic Church and the Europeans, for example. So what we have is in the daylight, a lot of people are afraid to express vulnerability. They can express anger and rage, be it driving in a car or something like that during the day trying to get to work, or internalizing rage at work because of a colleague and stuff like that, and becoming depressed. And these are some of the things that are happening. And part of it is because we've denied our primitive nature, or our natural nature, where it's just mind, body, and spirit. Now when Muslims, Buddhists, and Christians come home, their hoop or their medicine wheel is intact, because they have the security and the emotional support of the powerful influence that they have on society, and how they feel, like they feel the emotions of having a daughter and having a mother, and they have the pride of saying, I'm a Muslim man, or I'm a Christian man. And whereas I'm not saying First Nation people can't have that, but they have no powerful influence over society. So they have no, I'm a First Nation man and I've contributed this, I've done this. Or I'm an African man and my development has been arrested through slavery, but I've contributed this to society. So you have this medicine wheel that's been destroyed for pagans or earth religious people. So this is just to express a perspective. I'm going to move on to a time diagram. Okay, what number do we live in globally? What number do we live in globally? I'd say it's the number 12. Sure, if you're military, you live by 24 hours a day. But in most people, most clocks, most societies live in the number 12. 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of night. That's not considering daylight savings time and summertime and winter time and more darkness during the winter. I'm not considering that. I'm just speaking thematically. So in the daytime, what you have is you have 4 different peoples. White is associated to Christianity. Sure, there's black Christians, there's Asian Christians and stuff like that, but in America, white is associated to Christianity. I'm associating black to Muslim, or African or Semitic people to Muslim. Yellow, I'm associating to Buddhist, and red, I'm associating to people who've had their development arrested, or their society or civilization shut down as a result of being overtaken by the progress of Muslim, Buddhist, and Christian pursuits of empire building. So in the daytime, you have Muslims, Buddhists, and Christians that go to work with mind, body, and spirit, like I said before with the triangle. And what you have is you have the people that have had their development arrested, the more primal, the more earth-based religions. sure, there's monotheism in other religions like Judaism and other, even the Red Road, some of it's monotheism. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who have had their development arrested. So what we have is during the night, the only people that have a sense of, when they go to sleep at night, like, I'm contributing something to the greatness of my beliefs. I'm contributing something to the greatness of my society, of my world. You have the medicine wheel of the Muslim, Buddhist, and Christian. Now, considering what I said about the hexagram and birth control, what you have is 6, 6, 6. You have people that have been, all three of these religions have been trying to control human sexuality. And what's happening is that through condoms and birth control, in the nighttime, a lot of people are having sex. So during the day, people don't have sex. Like, you don't see people on the street corner having sex and stuff like that. Maybe in some big cities. But it generally doesn't happen during the daytime, so sexuality happens at night. And it's like, we can't come out into the daylight and have sex because it's unacceptable by these three primary moral conditioners of the world. Now, I'm not blaming them, but what's happening is that because of light, because of technology, because of birth control, people no longer want to be controlled by these shame-based religions. Now, I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just saying that they do try to control the beast or the human being. And in trying to control the human being or the beast or the animal, what we have is we have people that want to deal with the issue of being human. So during the day, what's happening is people are behaving more primally, more primitively, more naturally. And in this natural pursuit of sexuality, they're turning to forgotten religions or almost forgotten religions, and they're asking for guidance. I for one believe in the Red Road, because I believe in a lot of the morality of Christianity and Muslim and Buddhist faith, but I don't believe in the supernatural or the superstitious aspects of them. That's just me. Like, you guys do your own thing, but I'm just talking for myself. So what you have is you have people behaving more primitively and more primally through piercings, tribal art, tattoos, and going to sun dances. And I'm not saying that because it's primal, it's not sophisticated or developed or deeply intelligent. It actually is, in my opinion. But what you have is you have people that want to reconnect with the creation. Now, a lot of these religions say that you should worship the creator, not the creation. I find it really hard to not spiritually connect with nature. And part of nature is sexuality. So the beast that everybody talks about in the Christian faith is the human animal restrained from its nature. So the one animal on the planet that hasn't dealt with its nature and is right now in the last century dealing with its nature through light and birth control, we have a cognitive dissonance that's happening with Muslims, Buddhists, and Christians, the primary economic consumers or moral influence on the earth. So the beast or the human animal or that everybody's talking about is the human animal. And we need to deal with the issue of sexuality. We can't continue to shame the reality of existence. As long as we continue to shame the reality of existence, we'll always have anxiety, we'll always have crime, we'll always have many different dysfunctions and cognitive dissonances or uncomfortable feelings with anybody that expresses any faith outside of these three primary movers of influence. So what's happening is the structural integrity of Muslim, Buddhist, and Christian religions, their kids want to deal with the issue of sex. Now, one of the things to consider about this medicine wheel is we have we have child, we have youth, we have adult, we have senior. And one of the things that's happening in our society is that the seniors are being abandoned, the youth are being conditioned, and the adults are being stressed out. No, I'm not saying that this isn't happening to everybody, but the conservative values of a Muslim senior may be different than a Muslim youth. And there may be a disconnect and a frustration happening there. So what I'm trying to say is we need to deal with sex, and I hopefully through the hexagram have proven that the holy number 7, or creation of a human being, or the mesh or the braid between a human being, human beings, man and woman, is being separated. And now we need to deal with sexuality, and in dealing with sexuality we deal with ourselves. And in dealing with ourselves we give ourselves the opportunity to be what we actually are. So maybe we need to go back to a more primal, more primitive, not stupid religion. We need to reconnect with the earth. We need to reconnect with creation. Because I don't know if the Creator is going to show up anytime soon, or Jesus is going to show up anytime soon, or Judgment Day, or the end of the world and all that stuff. We need to deal with what we are. We need to get reacquainted with what we are. Now, part of the problem is aesthetics. And with these aesthetics, it's like I'm an average man. I only have an average sized penis. So I'm not huge, so I'm not able to be shameless, because I don't measure up to what has been conditioned to be what is animalistically expressible in our society, or human sexuality expressible in our society. I'm not saying that happens, but there is an aesthetic condition that where only Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie or Jennifer Aniston can be shameless and without shame of